Have you ever stopped to wonder where Jesus got more of his peace-loving values from? Such things as love thy neighbor, goodwill on earth, and peace towards men. Whoever accepts one of these kids receives me. Or have you ever wondered where most men wouldn't be caught dead eating with lower class status people such as tax collectors and women, why Jesus allowed himself to be documented by his disciples as eating with women and tax collectors? We know it's not from the Old Testament God because that guy was murder hungry. He allowed rape of both adults and children to happen, and he ordered wiping out his own creation repeatedly. We also know it's not from the popular groups of Jews at that time, the Essenes, the Pharisees, or the Sadducees. The Essenes were actually a purity-loving culture group of men that would sequester themselves isolated out by the Dead Sea, only allowing women to come in to serve them or to nurse them. The other two groups were strict adherents to at least the written law, maybe also the oral tradition. But that means that they would have subscribed to the idea that it was okay to create genocide and to rape women of other cultures in order to subjugate them and to dominate them. So I'm going to ask again, where in the world did Jesus come up with these radical, inclusive, and ethical values that we still prioritize today? Was he truly the Son of God and bringing them down from heaven and the God that we don't see in the Old Testament at all? Or is there something else going on? That's what we're going to investigate today, starting with what they don't tell you in church. Because, of course, as I've been saying all season, patriarchy doesn't allow you to see the patriarchal lens that we see the world through, that we see history through. So we have to do the work to take that lens off, look back at history without that lens, and see what the hell is going on. Jesus was raised in a time, talk about that in this episode here, but he was raised in a time where Aristotle and Plato's thoughts about women had trickled down to his generation. Their thoughts, if you remember, is that women were incompletely developed men, that they had not finished the gestation period. Men also believed that if they were of a certain status, they could subjugate both little boys up until the point where that boy would be of age and other lower class men. They were all exploitable for their own pleasure and labor. And yet we can see this radically different infiltration of values in the Gospels. If you look at history, the idea of the Golden Rule, it is all over the Middle East at this time, or before Jesus's time, even seen in China, and yet it goes even further back than that. Archaeological and anthropological evidence shows that before patriarchy swept across old Europe with the blade, brutally killing the people that lived in old Europe before this, that human societies lived in an entirely different societal structure for 30,000 years, maybe more. This was called a partnership society. Now, I'm not going to go actually into what that was, but I want you to understand the central theme that structured these societies that's completely different from our current society that's a hierarchy separating relationships from one another, putting something that's right in front of our faces every single year at this time. And that is the mother-child relationship. The mother holding the son in her arms, nursing it. That was at the center of these partnership societies, where they understood the importance of carrying on their line, carrying on the human experience, meant that they had to have a strong mother-child relationship bond, and they had to prioritize that in their societies. That wasn't just sentimental and nice to have, it was actually structural. You know, I keep talking about the foundation of patriarchy is what has built the structure of society. This was the foundation of their society, the mother-child relationship. Let's look at some other values that came from centering the mother with her child. They had care for individuals, i.e. love thy neighbor. They had radical inclusion. That means there wasn't a lot of class separation. Yes, there was some. I mean, again, it was not a perfect society because it's still humans on this planet, but it was much more inclusive and it was much more of a flat society. It wasn't hierarchical. This also meant that there was peace between people. They didn't seek out to one up the other and murder each other. They shared their resources, give to the poor. I mean, again, I don't know if there were poor back there because there was a less hierarchical, flatter structure, but they shared with each other what they needed in order to survive and thrive. And here's the kicker. Because of this mother-child central bond, they focused on peace and goodwill towards each other and not warfare. Think about that for a moment. When you center the mother-child relationship as the structural foundation of your society, there's little need for violence. You don't build empires that then turn around and sacrifice your kids in wars in order to be better than another tribe. And you start to see where these ideas came from. The idea of radical inclusion, flatter, classless society, and the idea of caring for one another. Love thy neighbor. Include the children. Mother-child relationship. These were not new ideas that Jesus magically brought down from heaven. They were ancient truths that held on for dear life through the blade coming into Europe to wipe out these old tribes, even into our present day and age. They were passed down stubbornly and then quietly. Take Crete for an example. Crete is an island that was in the middle of the Mediterranean, and it was established by this tribe called the Minoans. These people were able to survive because they were isolated on the island much longer than the other tribes that got wiped out by the blade of the brutal barbarians of patriarchy. Archaeological evidence shows that these were cities planned sophisticatedly, that they had advanced art and advanced technology such as indoor plumbing and running water. Way before it resurfaced in other parts of the world, they believed that these barbarians from the northeast and the southeast, i.e. the people that came up and replaced the Canaanites from the Red Sea area, were barbarians. And they knocked out this advanced society and knocked out the technology that would therefore take us hundreds, if not thousands of years to replicate once again. And yet, here's the perverse kicker. Patriarchy labeled these people primitive. These people were the barbarians, and labeled itself the civilized people coming in to bring civilization to the barbarians. Does that pattern sound eerily familiar to you? It should, if you're following me on Substack. I just wrote a post called Patriarchy's Original Sin, pointing to the idea that Eve actually had God project his sin of coming into Europe and brutally annihilating these people that lived in a Garden of Eden type society, the partnership type society. If you want to read that article for yourself, make sure you head over to Substack. The link will be below, and I will be doing a video to expand on that idea here soon. Jesus didn't invent this compassion. He didn't bring it down from on high. He learned it from somewhere. And I believe, as I point out in the Sacred Tryst, it was probably the women that he was surrounding himself with. And here's the point that I haven't pointed out yet that makes people super uncomfortable. Jesus was preaching goddess-centered values because these ancient partnership societies were goddess-centered because they understood the bond between mother and child and how magical and sacred and awe-inspiring it was. As humans, we worship what we know. And so the goddess was worshipped as life-giving. If we believe the account in the Bible of who Jesus was, at least this part of it, Jesus didn't reject the goddess. He worshiped her. He embodied these values in his ministry. He was formed potentially by communities that still carried the memory of the sacred feminine, of the mother as life giver, protector, teacher, and moral center. Jesus was not a rebel against Judaism and the different groups of people alone. He was a threat to patriarchy himself. And that's why he went to the cross, because he threatened the message that patriarchy had been attempting for 25 to 3,000 years by this point to wipe out from our human history. And yet, patriarchy has never succeeded at this. That's why the mother-child image continues to reappear and talk to us from the grave of the ancient days repeatedly. The Catholic Church originally couldn't stamp it out. Eventually, they canonized, enthroned, and venerated Mary, even to this day. And that raises a question that came to me as I was putting this video together. Why did the Catholic Church continue to accept this mother-child relationship and the Protestant Reformation wipe it out even more? If I look at it from a historical angle without the patriarchal lens on, it's because the Reformation happened in the 1500s, so 16th, 17th century, and we were even further into patriarchy. Patriarchy's long arm had built so much foundation that it was really wiping through and taking away those old ancient values that we knew of. But here's another thing that I started to put together as I'm reading other books about patriarchy and capitalism. Do you want to know when capitalism got its footing and where? And the exact same time and place that the Protestant Reformation started, Northern Europe, 1500s. If you want to know more about that, drop a comment below and I will do the investigation to bring that forward more. But what I really want us to take away from this video today, from this education today, is the idea that Mary wasn't just the mother of the Christ. The picture was always meant to include both of them. She was the last public remnant of an ancient worldview, and the image was meant to always include both mother and son, mother and child. Her image, along with her child in her arms, has persisted because the psyche remembers. The psyche remembers that we come from mother, from mother, from mother, from mother, until time eternal. 6,000 years of domination by this patriarchal God has not been able to write out of its story this foundational truth that we know in our bones, in our marrow. They cannot erase the truth that life begins in relationship, not in hierarchy, in care, not in control, and in mutuality, not in exclusion or submission. You know, the Bible got something right. The truth never lies. It is always the truth. And the truth has been staring at us right there the whole time, shining its light, saying, remember me. Remember mother and child is the forefront of the healthy way to get to peace on earth, to get to joy, to get to inclusion and non-violence. It's when we recenter the mother-child relationship. This is the story of the Sacred Tryst series that I'm writing over on Substack. I'll have the link below. I am writing into a biblical historical fiction series this idea of resurrecting the goddess that we see in the Bible, clearly in Jesus's messages, as you've seen in this video, and putting its place, its rightful place back in our history. So yes, it's fun-ertainment or education-tainment, whatever that word is, but it does so much more. This is what patriarchy did in reverse back at the turn of BCE to CE, which is remythicize those old stories, putting men as the creators, putting men as the fathers and creator of everything, and wiping out women, making them not even the mothers of anything. I'm reclaiming that through the Sacred Tryst. We're going to reclaim that through retelling these ancient stories by remythicizing and realizing that these stories aren't lies. They're a continuation of something that's been passed down to us that patriarchy has never been able to stamp out. If you want to read that and join along with us, the link is down below. So let's revisit what we've been exploring here. Patriarchy's blade killed life instead of creating it and called it civilized. It perverted the truth, the capital T, that men created life, and then they labeled that natural order. It preaches this asinine idea that brutality and violence can bring peace on earth through more violence. But here's the actual truth that we all know now, and we need to shout loudly from the mountaintops, from the churches, from the pews, wherever we can, that light, joy, peace on earth can only come from a relationship centered on the sacred relationship of mother and child. A child of light can only come from the womb of a woman, from the awe-inspiring miracle of life emerging from this pregnant void of nothingness into infinite possibilities. So this season, let Jesus remain where he belongs, in the lap of the mother, at the bosom of Mary, held and nurtured and compassionately cared for so that he could thrive. And when you zoom out enough to see both of them together as they always were meant to be, you don't just rediscover the true light of the world, you rediscover your truth. The truth that you came from your mother and you have a place on this earth to belong to. You rediscover yourself in yourself. You rediscover yourself in your community, and you rediscover what peace on earth and goodwill towards women, children, and men really means and what is possible. This Christmas, let's put Mary back in Merry Christmas. Mary the mother plus Christ the son equals Merry fucking Christmas, y'all. If you want to know more about this patriarchal lens, make sure that you see this video there.